the next generation of lifestyle awareness that will transform your life significantly. Hi, welcome to Living Wow Out Loud. I'm your host, Callie Ray, founder of the Living Wow Center and author of the book, 8 Lessons Lupus Taught Me from Surviving to Thriving with Autoimmune Diseases. Living Wow is a lifestyle of choice and intention that was born from the truth that, number one, your body is designed to heal if you give it the environment to do so. Number two, you don't need a label or permission to be the expert in your own body. And number three, more than 80% of all diseases can be prevented or reversed by lifestyle. Unfortunately, this isn't what we're taught in our standard American diet and lifestyle culture. This podcast is a voice of hope and community where you will learn how to live a life of thriving that honors and embraces those three truths. Though you are an individual, you are not alone, and you can thrive living wow too. Welcome back to Living Wow Out Loud. I'm your host, Callie Ray, and today we are talking about food as medicine. This is probably my favorite topic because it was the catalyst for change in my personal transformation journey. It took me out of the negative health cycle and put me in the positive health cycle without even really realizing it. It was just so powerful. Today, I want to introduce you to what my husband calls God's pharmacy and really teach you how to recognize food as medicine and to think of food a little bit differently, think of medicine a little bit differently, and as a result, empower you to be the expert in your body. Without any further ado, we will jump into how we go about this process. We'll start with thinking about food differently. Now, in the SAD culture, standard American diet and lifestyle, we definitely think about food as calories in, calories out. That is just very deeply ingrained in our culture. That is not how we view food in using food as medicine, as using food as fuel. We're looking deeper. We're looking more broadly. It's not just calories, but it's what is the nutrition of this food? What is the nutritional profile of this food? And we probably are very used to flipping over the package and reading the nutrition facts. And the calories are in a big number. Then you've got some of the other like fats and sugars and the things that carbs, that's another one that is very commonly referenced on the nutrition label. What I want you to do is I want you to dig deeper and understand, look down to the ingredients, which are the fine print, and what are the ingredients of that food, and is the nutritional profile of those ingredients collectively, not just the food that you're actually looking at. And what's ironic is as we get farther and farther down this road, you're going to find that most of the foods that we are going to find as medicine actually don't even have a label. They don't have a nutrition facts panel because they're whole foods. They're not processed foods. They're not coming in a package. But we'll get to that. First of all, just understanding that we want to look beyond the label, beyond the name, and whatever marketing pops they're putting on that food to have you grab it. It might say low carb, it might say low fat, no sugar, no added sugar, those kinds of things that we go, oh, okay, this must be healthy. Or even some name brands are known for being healthy. And I want to call out any particular food sources, but this one comes to mind because my daughter was just saying the other day, I got it at Trader Joe's, so it must be healthy. No, not necessarily, because again, it's in a package. Look at more than the source, look at more than the calories, look at more than the nutrition facts, and look at the actual label, the ingredients, and the nutritional profile of that food individually as well as collectively. The next is the social, right? We're not going to look at food as a social activity, but we're going to look at it as a healing activity because we're looking at it as medicine. I'm not saying that there's not a place for social eating. There absolutely is, and I'm a huge fan of it. I love to host. I love to participate in social gatherings, and I love to gather around the table. I think there is a lot of, there's just benefit in that. So I am the last person to take that away, but I want you to think about food not only as social, but as a healing property. What is the healing purpose of this food rather than just the social reason to get together? I also want you to think about food not as an emotional food, but as a nourishing food. And ironically, if we are nourishing ourselves, we are going to be emotionally feeding our bodies. But again, in that sad perspective, that standard American culture, we eat for emotion. And whether that's boredom, whether that is stress, whether that is comfort, there's all these reasons that we eat. And rather than that emotional trigger, and then we eat, I want us to think about how is this food going to nourish at the cellular level. Instead of calories and social and emotional, that ingrained belief system and why we put food in our mouth and the how often we put food in our mouth and who we eat with, what we eat, those kinds of things. I want you to think about what is the nutritional profile of this food, and is it healing my body, and is it nourishing at the cellular level? So we're thinking of food as medicine. Now we're going to flip the script on medicine. And instead of thinking of medicine as this quick fix, masking, okay, rather than I have a headache, I'm going to take a pain reliever to get rid of my headache. That's really not getting rid of your headache. It's masking your symptoms. So I want you to think about, why do you have a headache? And maybe pause a little bit and look at what the symptoms are. What preceded that headache? What is the environment around you, both physically, emotionally, socially? Thinking, okay, what are some triggers that may be causing this? What have I eaten? What haven't I eaten? What have I drank, consumed? What environment am I in? Looking at the symptoms as a symptom rather than as a quick fix. So we're not just taking a pill to get rid of a symptom. We recognize that we're masking symptoms when we take a medication. That's the first thing we're going to change. The second is thinking of medication as dynamic, not chronic. So, for example, maybe you've had a surgery or an injury, like you broke a bone or sprained your ankle. In that case, you need a medication to take down the inflammation, to take down the pain so that you can create an environment of healing. It's very short term. You might need that medication for a day, maybe 3 days to get your body aligned for healing. Versus maybe high blood pressure, something that's more chronic. You have this high blood pressure, and so you're taking a medication and it's more chronic. You have to take it for the rest of your life. It's managing your symptoms for you rather than eliminating that high blood pressure. It's just taking it down over time in this chronic kind of situation. You're not looking at the lifestyle. You're not looking at what is the event that increased my blood pressure. What is it that is causing my blood pressure? Which leads us to the third way we're looking at medication is root cause versus symptom control. So again, the blood pressure analogy and the acute injury analogy. So if you know the root cause, you have a broken bone, and you're taking this medication for a short period of time to do a particular thing, then by all means, that medication is necessary and is appropriate. But if you're taking it for a symptom, to control a symptom, and you don't know the underlying root cause, you're taking it ongoing to manage those symptoms because you don't know the root cause, then I want you to challenge that belief system and recognize that medication may be masking the symptoms in a chronic sense and not getting to the underlying root cause. So we've changed the way we're thinking about food as medicine. We're looking at it as a healing modality. And we've changed the way we're looking at medications. And instead of thinking of it as a healing modality, we're thinking of it as a vehicle to help us get the environment around us into a healing state. Now that we have a different perspective on our food and on our medicine, we're going to step back from the fads and the norms. I'm taking blood pressure medication because my doctor told me to, and everybody that's over 40 is on blood pressure medicine. So challenging that narrative and stepping away from it. Or I eat keto because I lost a lot of weight on it and I feel good. And then you rickshaw back and go into a carb coma because you're starving your body and it wants those carbohydrates. And the long-term keto, also not necessarily a healthy diet. You're challenging those norms and those narratives and going, what feels right for my body? That's the whole purpose of using food as medicine and learning how to listen to your body to know which foods are medicine for your body and which are not. So I've broken it down. I simplified it into 3 steps that I feel like if you can do these 3 steps, you're going to be able to use food as medicine for your body and your conditions. It's going to increase that ability to thrive just because you're getting to the root cause and nourishing your body and understand what you need to be able to heal your conditions in your body. Actually, before we get into the 3 steps, I do want to ask that you allow time, because food is not a quick fix. It can absolutely, you can notice the change within 24 to 48 hours for sure. And within a week, you can actually start to change your microbiome and your digestion. Your cells replace themselves over time, and some of them very quickly, like your skin cells, your blood cells, your tissue, especially your mucous membrane, super quick recovery. Some take longer, like your nerve cells, like your bone cells. They take longer to regenerate, but they all regenerate. So I'm going to ask that you allow about 30 days for this process to take place. If you can commit to a 30-day elimination diet, but it's not going to take 30 days for the elimination diet, but it's going to take 30 days for you to come up with the data you need in your own body to make a wise choice for your nutritional healing, to be able to understand what's going into your body, how it's affecting your body, and to have enough time to know the effects of that. And still, I'm going to argue that 30 days is still nothing compared to medication. If you think about the time, the research for medication, sometimes the effects of the damage. I know I used to take Tylenol like candy because it was the only thing that really took the edge off of my chronic pain. And now, many years later, we understand the impact on our organs when we take those pain relievers chronically. Sometimes 30 days of Tylenol doesn't seem like a big deal, but when you look at it over time and you look at the long-term effects, it can be very damaging. Food, by and large, has no negative side effects. So it's not something that you have to worry about harming you or side effects. You won't have an adverse reaction to an elimination diet. Now, you may have a negative response, and I'll tell you in my own personal experience, when I did my very first elimination diet, one of the things that I cut out was gluten. And when I replaced gluten, anytime you take out something, you're going to replace it with something else. That's human nature. So when I took out gluten, I replaced it with corn and soy, because those are the grains that you fill in the gap. And for a lot of people, that's a really good replacement. For me, my symptoms actually got worse. And I thought, whoa, wait a second. I went off of gluten because it was supposed to be so inflammatory and so hard for the digestive tract. I'm trying to heal my gut and balance my hormones. And in fact, I felt worse. I had horrible brain fog. I had fatigue. I had worse digestion issues. And what I realized after digging a little bit deeper and taking a little more time was that it wasn't just the corn and the soy, because I could tolerate some corn and I could tolerate some soy. So when I narrowed it down and dug a little deeper, I realized that the common factor was the GMO corn and the GMO soy, which is very common in our sad environment on the grocery store shelves. It's very common. Most corn and soy in the United States is GMO. And so when I stepped away from that and I went with clean soy, non-GMO, when I went with corn that was non-GMO, like I could tolerate blue corn, but I couldn't tolerate yellow corn, and white corn was in the middle. So now I eat corn and soy both pretty freely, but it's always the non-GMO. That's an example of, yes, you can feel worse when you're doing an elimination diet. And it's not all that uncommon to feel worse because your body, again, it's like cleaning house. Anytime you are trying to clean something, you're going to make a big mess before it gets better. That's just the nature of it. This weekend, we've been working on our garage and bringing stuff out of storage. And so you cannot even park in there. Everything is just a complete and total mess until we're able to get the shelving in place, the organization, get rid of the things that we no longer need or that are duplicates, and organize what's left. And that's what an elimination diet is. At the cellular level, we're going to make a big mess before it gets better. So I ask that you commit to a 30-day timeline to really be able to give it the time and the analysis that it needs to use food as medicine. Think of it as your trip to the doctor, doing your labs, doing your urine sample and your blood work, all of those things to give you the data that you need. It's the same in that you're not the doctor and you're not doing labs. I don't want you to get that impression at all, but you are analyzing what you're putting in your body, how it feels in your body, what are the results, with either healing you or not healing you. Once you have that 30-day commitment, you've got it penciled out, this is what you're going to do. You're going to start an elimination diet. And what I mean by elimination diet is you're going to just take out all of the things that are known to be the culprits for breaking down your health, especially at the cellular level. Things like processed foods, number one, they're out the door. No processed foods during your elimination diet. You're also going to cut out any added sugar, especially refined sugars, no added sugars. Alcohol, caffeine. Those are probably the 4 most known and widely accepted toxins in our diets. Okay, so if you can take those 4 things out, it's going to tell you a lot. Then we're going to dive a little bit deeper. We've eliminated the known toxins. Now we're going to eliminate the sometimes toxins. Those are things like gluten, dairy, processed meats, or inflammatory meats, which tend to be red meat, pork, all meat. Maybe you cut out poultry, you go completely plant-based. It depends on where you're at. It depends on what you're trying to find out. First, you're going to eliminate the known toxins, those first 4, processed food, sugars, added sugars, okay? We're not talking about natural sugars, things like fruit, honey, maple syrup. Those are natural sugars that have health benefit, not refined sugars that you're adding in. Alcohol, caffeine. Those are known toxins in our body. Eliminate those for sure. Now, depending on what it is you're wanting to eliminate, you're going to also eliminate gluten, dairy, inflammatory meats, maybe all meats. It's going to depend on you. And then finally, if you have any known sensitivities or known allergies, of course you're going to eliminate those. Make sure that you just really ratchet down on those. So if you have food allergies, if you have food sensitivities, you know already that when you eat a food, it gives you an upset stomach. Take that out. So even if it's a plant, even if it's a good protein, even if it's a nutritional food, if it's something that your body doesn't like, take it out. for now. We're going to take it out. So those are the things that you're going to take out in your elimination diet. So then, of course, everyone says, what am I going to eat? You're going to eat very clean, whole food, not processed. So you're going to be eating lots of fresh fruit and produce, lots of potentially legumes, root vegetables, possibly fish, possibly poultry, depending again on how much you've eliminated. Again, if this is only for a short period of time. This is not what am I going to eat for the rest of my life. So calm down right now. I'm not telling you can't ever have a steak again. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm just saying right now we're trying to use food as medicine. And we've already talked about the fact that medicine is a short-term, not a long-term solution. So we're just going to take this 30-day period. And in that 30-day period, we're going to take a minimum of 10 days, preferably 2 weeks, so 10 to 14 days. And we're going to run this very strict medicinal, kind of like running your labs. We're going to really ratchet down and isolate the foods that we're eating. And while we're doing that, we're journaling. So I want you to write down what you are eating. Have your list of no, I'm not eating this, and be very strict about that. And then within that, you are going to journal what you are eating, how much of it, when, what type. Is it a protein bowl that has some rice and chicken and leafy greens and legumes, maybe some lentils or some black beans or something like that? You're going to have that and write down how much of it and what was in it. Herbs and spices, that's delicious. And here's the thing I didn't say is that I'll tell you what, food as medicine tastes a whole lot better than medicine as medicine. This is the most delicious medicine you are ever going to experience. I guarantee it. So that's a side effect of food as medicine, is that you start to understand and realize how delicious whole food and healing food can be. It is not only nourishing, but it is delicious as well. So in this, again, changing that mindset of, ooh, it's going to taste gross and it's going to be too hard. That is hogwash. What is hard is going in for a surgery that you could avoid if you would make some lifestyle changes and use food as medicine. That is what is painful. That is what is hard. This is the easiest, most delicious, most fulfilling way to heal your body, hands down. Like I said, you've got 10 to 14 days that you are doing this elimination diet. You've eliminated the processed foods, the added sugars, the alcohol, the caffeine. You've also eliminated the gluten, the dairy, and any known allergies or sensitivities that you have, possibly inflammatory meats or all meats, depending on what it is you're trying to accomplish. The other thing that you're going to do during this time is you're going to drink a lot of water. I'm going to encourage you probably to double your fluid intake. Not all fluids are created equal. So coffee and alcohol are out. They don't count as water or fluids because part of the reason that they're out is because they are diuretics. So they dehydrate the body, and we are trying to increase our fluids so that we can offload the toxins. We're trying to eliminate and use this food as medicine. So we want to clean house, and you can't clean house if you're just getting all of the toxins, but you don't have a way to move it out. So you need to be able to sweat. You need to be able to urinate. You need to be able to have your bowel movements move through the digestive tract. And if everything is dry and dehydrated, those things can't happen. So very important that you drink a lot of water to increase that elimination process. And then, like I mentioned earlier, make sure you're journaling, because that's the data. We have to have the data. If you're trying to remember what you had on day 1, when you get to day 20 and you're trying to then come up with your results, they're not going to be valid if you don't have a journal that you can look at. I'm not asking you to journal for the rest of your life. I'm asking you to journal during your elimination diet, because this is the data. Again, just like your labs, you get a report that says these are your levels. And you can absolutely, if you want to do this with your doctor and get labs. You can even get labs now without your doctor. You can get labs that are very reliable online and do that. So you can if you have the skill and you want to do that. But if you don't, you can absolutely go in and get your blood work done at the beginning and at the end of this diet. But I'm still going to encourage you to journal because I want you to understand the impact of the food itself. Our labs give us a big picture, and the way we feel also gives us a big picture, but we want to narrow it down. That's the value of the journal, and you can't change something you're not aware of. So if you journal it, you increase your awareness and you have it documented so that then you can look at the next day and the next day and the next day, and you're not trying to remember or form a trend in your mind. It's much easier to have it written down so you can see the trends. You will be able to feel the trends as well, but it's just much more valid if you journal. You're going to continue that journal after you have completed your elimination diet. So for that 10 to 14 days, whichever you choose, you're going to take out the foods that you've chosen to take out. And as you start to enter things back in, we're going to keep the big four out for a while because they really do sabotage the system. You're going to add one thing in. So don't add that one thing as junk food. Processed food is not the first thing you're going to put back in. Personally, when I put things back in, I start with either gluten or dairy because I'm able to add those back in and find a level that feels good. Don't add in your sensitivities early either. But the ones that you maybe have eaten for a while, you took it out, add back in. Let's say dairy. You add back in dairy, maybe you add cheese to something. And then how do you feel? Add in that dairy for about 3 to 5 days. How do you feel? You're journaling that. And if you're feeling great after about 3 days, then go ahead and add in another, maybe the gluten. You can adjust this to your own needs, but you're going to add it in for about 3 days and document how you're feeling in those 3 days. Your body only takes about 24 hours to really feel the effect, especially if it's a negative effect. If it's you feel satiated and energetic, that's going to be a food that you want to keep in. This is where you start to analyze the data and figure out what are your personal superfoods. You hear the buzzword superfood everywhere, and a lot of times they're very exotic, foreign things that are rare and hard to come by, goji berries, or, I'm just thinking cacao. Those are not hard to come by if you know where to look for them. Mushrooms, the very exotic, like lion's mane or things like that. Yes, they are superfoods, but there's also things that are very common that are very nourishing for some bodies. Root vegetables, legumes, green leafy vegetables, garlic, onions, leeks. Those are a superfood because they are a natural antimicrobial, antifungal food. And so there are a lot of superfoods. Berries are known to be really high in antioxidants and low in sugar. So they're a really popular food. And for you, it may be a superfood. Right now, I'm on a blackberry kick. I love blackberries, and they're so dark, and they're in season. And the ones that I've been getting are giant, delicious, dark. They make the most beautiful purple smoothie ever. So that's my personal superfood right now. That's what's going to come out of this is you're going to start to realize and recognize which foods are really nourishing and amazing for your body. And then, of course, the poisons, the ones that we want to avoid. You may have some of those. My husband, for example, has learned that anything that has nitrates or anything that's even closely related to the nitrate family in that processed form, again, for some reason, just like with my corn and my soy, he can have the natural nitrates that come from plants because they're in a phyto compound that allows the cells to use the nitrate the way it needs to. But anything that is added in, like deli meats or chips that have nitrate preservatives in it, he's having a gout flare within a day. Knowing that, understanding, and it takes a little bit of deep dive, it takes a little bit of time to find out what are your personal superfoods and what are your personal poisons. As you recognize that, that is the value of the food as medicine. You start to recognize the foods that are creating that root cause disease, and you can fortify and support your body without masking the symptoms, but by actually eliminating the symptoms, because you're healing that system that is giving you those symptoms, those warning signs, those, hey, I need some attention here because you're poisoning me. This poison is causing me to not be able to thrive optimally at the cellular level. So as you start to get that balance, that comes from the last 2 weeks of that 30 days. So the first 10 to 14 days, you're actually changing the way you eat. You've taken out all of those potential toxins and contributing factors in the diet. This is just strictly food. We're not dealing with the other systems of the body right now. We're just dealing with the food because we're using the food as medicine. And then the last 2 weeks of that 30 days, you're going to strategically add back in and continue to journal and go, okay, when I added back in the dairy, this is how I felt. Maybe it was, oh, wow, I felt really crummy, or, oh, I felt great. Okay, what was that dairy? Because again, maybe you can tolerate yogurt, but you can't tolerate ice cream. What's different? Is it the sugar content? Is it the lactose? What's different about the dairy? What's different about the meat? What's different about the gluten? Like in my situation where I was saying, I could do some corn, but I couldn't do all corn. If I had just regular corn, and if I had a big quantity because I was replacing all of my gluten with corn and soy, I thought, oh, I just need to go whole food. So I went edamame instead of my soy-based shake. No, the edamame just tore me up. And it was because it was GMO versus my water-washed, clean, non-GMO soy that was in my shake, I did fine with. Do that deep dive, that analysis of your data and go, okay, I ate this kind of this food and I felt fine. I ate this kind of that food and I felt horrible. Then you can start to build and know what are your superfoods and what are your personal poisons. Some of the general things to know and understand is that as a category in and of itself, I know a lot of vegan is very popular right now. And there's a lot of controversy. So is carnivore. I just want you to understand plants, the polyphenols, vitamins and minerals that are only available in plants. And so your body really needs those to detox. And they're not all created equal. And that's why you're going to figure out what are your personal superfoods. On the flip side, animals tend to give us protein. We have protein in plants too. So I don't want you to feel like you can't get protein on that 14-day elimination. You're not going to have protein. You can and you will, because there is protein and it's very available protein in plants. But by and large, the animals bring to us the proteins, the amino acids, the fats that our bodies also need. And so finding that balance and understanding, it's not villainizing plants, it's not villainizing animals, it's understanding what are they bringing nutritionally, because again, we're looking at the nutritional profile, we're looking at the nourishing. By and large, animals tend to be very satiating. You're going to feel more heavy and satiated with the meat than you are the smoothie, just generally. But again, knowing what your body, some of the real superfoods that are just available everywhere, every day, things like leafy greens, they are known to have so much antioxidant, vitamins, and minerals that are just so powerful for healing. Legumes, beans, lentils, just so healing. Root vegetables, they don't get the star power very often. I guess beets, sweet potatoes, those guys get a little bit of honor, but all of the root vegetables, they have prebiotic fiber in them. They have minerals and vitamins that come because they're down in the ground. They are very powerful for healing when you're using them as medicine. Spices and herbs. Some of the foods like the alum family, like garlic and onions, they are naturally antimicrobial. So they help the balancing of the bugs in the gut because they're what they call adaptogens. They get rid of the bad stuff and they bring in the good stuff, and you don't even have to know. It just does it naturally in your body. So amazing. It is mind-blowing how personalized God's pharmacy is inside your body at the cellular level if you put it in. What you're trying to do is analyze it and understand it so that you know how to feed it and grow it more and more. So then the last step of using food as medicine is that prescription part. Now you have your data, you know what your superfoods and what your personal poisons are. Now you figure out your personal script. You figure out your ratio. Are you going to do an 80-20, meaning 80% of your diet is plant-based and 20% is other meats, fats, sauces, those kinds of things? Are you going to be even a little bit tighter than that and do a 90-10? So 90% of your diet is plant-based and 10% of your diet is meat and other. Are you going to be 100% vegan and have no animal products at all? What did you find out in your elimination diet? What feels good in your body? What is your personal ratio of those sustaining, mega healthy superfoods and the other? So you've got this ratio. What's your frequency? How often are you going to eat? When we think about medication, it'll say things like take it at bedtime, take twice a day, take 3 times a day. So again, you're thinking about food as medicine. So you have to think, what's your frequency? What's your duration? So your frequency, are you eating twice a day? I like it when I do what we call brunch and dinner. So I eat a late breakfast and then an early dinner. And so I'm really only eating twice a day. And when I'm doing that, I feel pretty good for me. Then there's the traditional 3 times a day, morning, afternoon, and evening. And what times? When are you eating? What's your window? Are you having digestion? You need to take it smaller amounts more frequently. So you're doing 5 times a day and you're just not eating as much and eating more often so that you can keep your system on. Maybe you've got blood sugar issues and you're trying to keep things steady. So you're trying to avoid big pause, the opposite of intermittent fasting, right? Intermittent fasting is where you've got a large amount of time between meals, and eating the small frequent meals, it would be the opposite of that. And again, there's benefits to both. It depends on your personal body rhythm, and that's what you're going to learn during your elimination diet. So you've finished up your diet. You've done the 10 to 14 days. You've now added back in the things that you had taken out. And you've documented, journaled how you feel, what it looks like. Now you've come up with your own personal script. What's your ratio that you want to consume? What are your superfoods? What are your personal poisons? A note here, you don't ever put the personal poisons back in. I can tell you every time I put processed foods back in my diet, maybe it is a social meal and I'll eat something that I don't normally eat. I'm at the point now, I've been doing it long enough that I usually can get by and not have any kinds of symptoms. But if I do it for either a large amount or maybe we're talking about the holidays. So I might eat more processed sugar over the holidays than I normally do. My body will tell me. And I will remember that's a personal poison for you. Alcohol's another one. My body does not do alcohol. If I have even one drink, I feel like trash. So it's just not worth it to me. It is my personal poison. So I just don't drink alcohol at all, ever. So that's personal to you, understanding how it lands in your body and what it does in your body. You're going to come up with your own ratio of superfoods versus other, your frequency, how often you're going to eat, how much you're going to eat, and the duration. How long are you going to use the food as medicine? This is not your diet for the rest of your life because, again, your body changes, your environment changes, your needs change. And so you may need to do an elimination diet periodically. I do it probably annually for sure. Usually in the spring, I will do a full elimination diet because I'm trying to cleanse and get rid of all of the indulgence of the holiday seasons when I do tend to intake more of those personal poisons and just reset and figure out where I'm at. That's where I am doing it for 30 days and that's all I need. Or maybe I'm doing a cleanse. I'm doing it like for 3 days and I'm going really hardcore on that elimination and I'm only juicing. So I juice or fast for 3 days and then I start to add things back in. So it can be 3 days, it can be 10 days, it can be 14 days, it can be 30 days. The elimination diet, once you understand how to use it and how to document it and how to adjust your personal prescription, then you really have become the expert in your body and you really can learn to understand and adjust it. Just like when you go into the doctor and they say, you have this problem and here's your prescription. And then they might have you come back in, they might run labs again, and they might adjust it. It's not like you go to the doctor one time, you get one prescription, and that's it for the rest of your life. So again, remember, we're using food as medicine. So it's going to be dynamic. If you start feeling symptoms, it's time to re-implement an elimination diet. Or it's time to implement food as medicine and adjust and see maybe some things that you were tolerating before, you're not now. Generally what happens, and this is really cool, this is the benefit of doing food as medicine. There are no adverse side effects. Your body is only going to thank you because these are all natural foods that we are intended to consume. All of these foods are given to us by God, by our Creator, to consume to heal our bodies. And as long as that's the food we're consuming, there are no adverse effects. Where we get into that trouble is when we're consuming medications or we're consuming processed foods that are not intended for our cells and our bodies. They don't understand how to take it in. And so it comes off as a personal poison. That to me is the biggest benefit, is that there is no side effect. No long-term damage is going to happen if you're using food as medicine. It's only going to help your body. And it's also one of the most tangible ways to quickly learn and listen to your body and understand what it's saying. As you do this, you become very tuned into those symptoms. And instead of masking them, you are interpreting them and you're understanding. You're like, oh, okay, I need to increase my antioxidants. I need to increase my alums, my garlic, and those kinds of foods. You look at the foods that are supporting that part of your body. So understanding it's just the best way to respect your body and to listen to it rather than just ignore it. And that's what happens when we're just taking chronic medications for symptoms that are an annoyance to us or that scare us, and we don't know why we're taking them, for how long we're taking them, and what it's getting at. And the bottom line is that food addresses the root cause. And when we address the root cause of our symptoms, then we're healing. And when we're healing, we're thriving. Understand that food is medicine. And if we use it that way, we understand how to put it into our bodies, analyze how it is affecting our bodies, and then come up with our personal script of what works best, you will be living wow. You will be thriving and understanding that root cause and healing. That to me is what it's all about. I can't wait for you to get into that positive cycle of healthy living and nutrition and just understanding how good it feels to feel good. Just one of the systems of living wow, but it is so foundational, so important, and so powerful. So until next time, shine on. Hey, if you find value here on the Living Wow Out Loud podcast, will you please share it with your friends and take a minute to rate it on the platform that you're listening on? That's how we live wow out loud. You know that more people need hope and they need the messages shared. And that's how we get recognized among all the noise. This is where you find your voice. Will you please share and subscribe and rate so that we can grow?